All right, part 3, getting an apartment in New York City. So me and my best friend, she moved from Florida to New York working at Bubba Gump's. I moved from Las Vegas to New York. She got me a job at Bubba Gump's, which, by the way, you don't just like get a job and start serving. Like Bubba Gump's is, I don't know if it's still like this, but at the time, it was weeks before you were going to make any money. It was like, and you were getting paid like the server's minimum wage, which is way lower than regular minimum wage. It's like, I don't know, $4 an hour tops. That's what you're getting paid while you're training. Like, it was dire. Like, you're making no friggin' money for weeks. Like, I was so poor. But I had saved a little bit of money to get this apartment. So her aunt and uncle gave us 1 month to figure it out, and get out of their house. And so we're looking for apartments constantly. I mean, one of us is going to just consistently just looking at apartments and trying to figure it out. My credit wasn't great. Hers was better than mine, but still not great. And we didn't have big proof of our income because we'd just gotten these jobs. So that was also a hurdle. So, and I'm also doing my internship. So I'm doing my internship in the Empire State Building. I'm working in Times Square, and those hours at Bubba Gump's, oh God, you work so late. If you work the night shift, you don't get out until like 2. And then I'm taking a train all the way back to Long Island, Amityville, Long Island, and like barely getting any sleep, and then getting up and going to my internship again. It was torturous. It was the craziest days. I was so tired. And then in between trying to find apartments. So we're constantly looking at apartments. We looked at one where the shower was in the kitchen. New York and these apartments, I swear to God, it's the craziest thing. There was one we looked at, and it's so funny because when you look at apartments for New York, you go, you can find some things that are affordable. They're scams, or it's not at all what it looks like. It's the craziest thing. New York is so freaking shady when it comes to getting an apartment. It's ridiculous. There was one that we looked at online, and it was a 2-bedroom, which we thought that we were going to be able to get. Mistaken. No way were we going to afford a 2-bedroom in Manhattan. It was not going to happen. Meanwhile, my dad's in my ear going, don't move to Manhattan. And I'm like, I'm moving to Manhattan. And he's like, move to Queens, move to Brooklyn. Don't move to Manhattan. And I'm like, I'm moving to Manhattan. So we get an apartment, or we are looking at apartments. One of them said it was a 2-bedroom, and I didn't get to see it. Kelly did. Kelly went to go see it. And she's like, my first question was to the broker, can it be considered a bedroom if you can't fit a bed in it? And he's like, yeah, as long as it has a closet. I can't. It was ridiculous. It was insane. There was one that I looked at, and it was a vacant apartment. I walk in, and there's a big rug on the floor. It's the only rug, and it's in a very odd location. I had no idea what that was about. So we like walk in, and I was thinking like, that's weird, you know? And I look at the apartment. It was all right. I don't remember if it was a 1-bedroom or a studio. But that's where we were at that point. We were even looking at studios, and then finally I'm just like, what's the rug about? You know? And so as we're exiting, I step on the rug and my foot falls in, like slumps down. And so I move the rug, and there's a hole in the floor. And I'm like, are they going to fix this? And he's like, no. What? Literally just like a hole in the floor. What? Okay. So apartment after apartment after apartment wasn't working for one reason or another. Either we weren't meeting the requirements financially and with our credit scores, or the apartment was garbage and we just couldn't do it. Finally, we find an apartment, and it is a studio apartment, and it was under 200 square feet. I want to say it was 150 square feet. It was 8.5 feet across and like 14 feet in length. And then there was like a little hallway with a bathroom. Tiny. And it had a sleeping loft, which is, I said I would sleep in. But then when I went and saw it, it was 2.5, it was above our kitchen, and it was 2.5 feet tall. So once you have a mattress that's 6 to 8 inches, like, you're like this to the ceiling. And I was like, Kelly, I can't do it. Like, I can't do it. I just can't. So, anyway, we found that apartment and we were like, okay, this is the one that we're going to do. We applied. They told us no. The only way we could get in is if we would pay a full year up front or have a guarantor. So in New York, to meet the requirements, the rent requirements, you have to make 40 times the rent in a year. And we didn't meet that. And so if you have a guarantor, someone to like be your co-signer basically, they have to make 80 times the rent in a year. And I think it has to be like if it's a guarantor, I think it has to be an individual person. It can't be like multiple people. It has to be one person that makes 80 times your rent. And by the way, this rent is $1,650 when we moved in, I believe. It's way more than that now, but at the time it was $1,650 when we were moving in. So we asked her aunt and uncle, we asked her uncle if he would be our guarantor, and he said, yeah. So we bring home all of the information for him to be the guarantor. And it's like, they want to know like what you have in your bank account. They want pay stubs. Like they want a lot of information that he was like, I'm not comfortable giving away this information. So we were devastated. We were like, cool. So we don't have a place to live. Okay, cool. So can we like stay here for another month, or are you just gonna like put us on the streets, or so it was a pretty sad night. We were like both devastated. And then the next day, her uncle was like, look, we will give you the full year rent up front and you will pay us rent every month. And we're like, okay. And so obviously we were elated. We were so happy. So we told the apartment that's what we were going to do. They agreed. Perfect. And then we had to go get the money and put all the money down. Like everything in New York happens so fast, by the way. It's like you got to get in there. People like it can become bidding wars. Luckily they just agreed for us to do it, and we weren't like up against someone else at the time. But there have been plenty of times that has happened to people. Like you can't play around here, and you can't look for things far in advance either. Like you can look now for something next month, it's not going to be there. Like that's just not the way it works in New York. It's so high stress. Like moving is the most high stress thing in New York City that I've probably ever had to do. Like I hate it. Every time I have to move, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to deal. But yeah, it's like you gotta make moves. So it was like literally like that day we're like, okay, so her aunt and uncle signed us both checks for half and half. We signed contracts with them to make sure that we're going to pay them. Our parents have to sign to say we're going to pay. That's literally her aunt and uncle. So her mom, her Aunt Linda made her mom, her Aunt Linda's sister, sign something to say you're going to pay me back if your daughter tries to get out of this. I love it. But I was happy to do it. I mean, I would do the same thing. So sign contracts with them, parents sign contracts, and we get checks for whatever the total was. I don't know. I think it was $10,000 a piece or something like that. You do the math. 1,650 times 12 divided by 2. And so Kelly goes to her bank. She has Chase. She goes to her bank, withdraws we had to give them cash, withdraws the $10,000. We go to Wells Fargo, which is my bank, and I give them the check, and they're like, we don't have $10,000 cash to give you. Is this a bank? What do you mean? And they were like, yeah, we don't have $10,000 to give you. And Kelly goes, what kind of a fake bank is this? What do you mean? don't you deal in money? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I guess they just don't carry that. I don't know. From what I understand, like, they wouldn't open the vault or something, and they only have that kind of cash in the vault. I have no idea. It was the craziest thing. So then we're like, go. And by the way, we have to sign this lease at a certain time on that day, like, in order to keep this apartment and not battle potentially someone else taking our apartment. So, and we're in Long Island, so we need to get this money, go to New York, like, go do, like, we have a broker that we're working with, so he has to take us through this whole process and signing the lease and all of this stuff. By the way, I wasn't allowed to be on the lease. I don't remember why, but I couldn't be on the lease, so Kelly had to be on it by herself. Anyway, so I'm just trying to cash this check. I can't get this check cashed. I'm like, what the heck? So we go to, like, the next Wells Fargo bank. They're like, nope, we don't have it. What in the world? How do banks not have 10,000? What? So we're just going to branch after branch after branch, and we're running out of time. Like, it's like midday at this point, and I think the office was going to close at 6, and we still needed to take the train into Manhattan, and oh my God, it was just so crazy. And we had like we knew which train we had to take. It was like the last train that we could take unless we were going to be late. And so, so we finally find a bank that can give me $10,000. And we go to the train. We're like just barely making it. She's parking the car and we see the train come. And I'm like, fuck, we're not going to make it. And she's like, I'm going to drive to the next station. I'm like, okay. So she's just like out trying to beat the train. And it's in the Long Island Railroad is above ground until like it gets to Manhattan, but it's above ground in Long Island and Queens. It goes through from Queens into Long Island. It's all above ground. It's an above ground train. So we're watching the train. We can see it. We're driving on a road next to the train and we're just trying to beat it. And this is not like a highway. It's like a road with a ton of freaking stoplights. So we're just constantly like just back and forth with the train, trying to beat it to the next station long enough to get parking, run up the stairs and get onto the train. Oh my God. I don't even remember. I think we ended up having to drive all the way to Jamaica, Queens because we just kept missing the train at like every freaking stop, which is a ways. It's not like a short ride, but there's only one train, like for that stop that we were at, there's only one train. So it's like, once you miss it, it's going to be like another hour or something, which is why we knew that we couldn't do anything. But in Jamaica, we did drive to Jamaica. In Jamaica, there's multiple trains that go into the city and we didn't want to pay to go into the city. We didn't want to worry about parking in the city, which is a whole nother debacle. So we couldn't drive into the city, but we drove to Jamaica where it's a hub. There's a ton of different trains that come into Jamaica and then go into Manhattan. So we just did that because then we weren't going to be held down by like an hour or whatever. So we get into the city. We're like running to try to catch this broker to go and sign our lease. He had to get like a money order of some sort. And so we went with him to the bank. And we're standing outside of the bank and we're just hoping that we make it. Like, we're telling him, hurry up, blah, 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 because we still have to get to this management office and sign the lease. We're standing outside the bank waiting for him to do whatever he needed to with our cash. And then we're just like, we're so nervous. We're so panicked. We're like, what if we miss this? What if we don't get this apartment? You know? And then right then, Kelly's like, oh my God. And I'm like, what? And she like looks over and like a bird pooped on her shoulder. She's like, I just can't take one more thing. Like, I just can't take another thing. This has to be it. And I'm like, I think it's actually good luck when a bird poops on you. And she's like, you're only saying that because you're not the one with the bird poop. But anyway, we made it. We signed our lease. We were able to move into our tiny little apartment. We were broke once again. So we were sleeping on twin size air mattresses in this apartment. No furniture. We didn't have literally any furniture. We just had clothes, some pots and pans and plates, and that was pretty much it. We lived in that apartment together for almost 2 years. Like, she moved right before 2 years. And honestly, best 2 years of my life. Like, we ended up getting a bunk bed. I was like in my mid-20s. What was it? That was in 2010 to 2011, something like that. And so I was 25 and sleeping on a bunk bed. I was on the top bunk. She was on the bottom because she had a dog. So she needed the bottom bunk so her dog could sleep with her. And I can just remember like us staying up some nights until God only knows what time, just laughing, just talking about whatever and just cracking up laughing. Like we had some of the best times I've ever had in my life on those bunk beds, like watching movies. And during Hurricane Sandy, we actually told the restaurant that we were evacuating. We did not. Oh wait, I don't even think it was Sandy. It was before Sandy. There was a hurricane that hit us before Sandy. I can't remember what it was called. We told the restaurant we were going to evacuate, but we were not evacuating. We just wanted a reason to be off together, because at that point, like, I think when we were off, it was never on the same days. And we just stayed home and we binge watched Sex and the City. And it was just like the best time. Like, just the two of us hanging out in the house. You really couldn't go anywhere because there was a hurricane. And oh my God, we just had so much fun living in this apartment. I remember while I was still doing my internship, like I said, we were so broke, and Eminem and Jay-Z were doing a concert. It was when the new Yankee Stadium had just opened, and it was the first ever concert that they were ever going to hold at the new Yankee Stadium. And it was Jay-Z and Eminem, and they did like just a few. It wasn't a huge tour that they did. They did like a few locations. It was for some special event or something. And we wanted to go so bad. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford these tickets, you know? But we waited until the very last day. We got tickets, literally spent every dollar I had on these tickets. Like I had no money left. Which is the beauty of working in a restaurant, because you go from no money to money the next day, or the next shift, I should say. But the next day I had my internship. So I went to my internship and got off, and I went to the subway. I swiped my Metro card, and I didn't have enough money on my Metro card, and I didn't have any money in my bank account. So I called Kelly and I'm like, I'm going to be late coming home because I'm going to have to walk from 34th Street up to 84th Street. And she's like, what? I was like, I don't have any money. Like, I don't have any money on my Metro card. I have nothing. So she ended up meeting me and swiping me in, because she didn't have any money either, but she had money on her Metro card. So she's like, I'll come swipe you in. So she swiped me into the subway. She came and got me. But, and I would never jump the subway. Like, the ticket, if you get caught going over the turnstile in the subway, it's like $125. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. I'm so sorry. Like, good for you, that the people that do it, like, I give you all the props in the world. I'm not risking $125 for like at the time, $2.50 subway ride. No, that's not me. I'm not that girl. I follow the rules. Yeah, so that was that. And so I continued to work at the restaurant. I finished up my internship. They did not offer me a job. And actually it was coming to the end of my internship. I was there for 3 months. It was coming to the end of my internship. Now, this is something I worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Like, this was a full-time job of an internship, but completely unpaid. And I had to go pick up mail or something from one of the other offices for Damon John, and so I went and I picked it up and I brought it in. And he wasn't in the office every day or anything. Like, he had his staff and everything that I worked with every day, but like, I didn't see him all that often. And anyway, I go into his office to give him this mail, and he was like, who are you? And I'm like, Amina. He's like, how long have you been here? And I'm like, not long. And he's like, how long? I'm like, 3 months. And he's like, that's a long time. How come I've never met you? And I was too terrified to tell him, you do know me. So I just was like, I don't know. Anyway, that was right before I left. So I did not get offered a job, whatever. So I left there, and I was just applying for every single fashion job I could find. Everything. Like, if you know the fashion industry, the website that you go on is called Style Careers. I knew every single listing on Style Careers. I knew every single one because I applied for every single one multiple times, and I was not getting a single phone call. I couldn't even get to an interview. Like, that's how hard it was. It was one of the most competitive times in fashion. It's still hard to get a job in fashion, especially when you don't have experience, but it was one of the most difficult times because it's when the fashion industry had like blown up. Like, everybody thought they were a fashion designer. It was the time of like celebrity fashion lines and all of this stuff. So like everybody wanted to be a fashion designer, and I could not get a job to save my life. It was the most of, and it was so frustrating. It was just like, I'm literally willing to do anything. I was applying for like working at a front desk, like an office managing job in as long as it was in the fashion industry. I'm like, I just need my foot in the door. Like, I'm such a hard worker. If I could just get into an interview, I know I could land it. I just need the interview. I just couldn't get in. So anyway, finally get an interview. It was literally my first interview, and I got hired. Like, pretty much on the spot, he hired me. And I just remember leaving that interview. It was in Times Square in the garment district, which is like right next to Times Square. And the way that I felt, it almost felt like a movie. Like, I felt like I was like in a movie montage. I'm like in New York, like my dream is coming true. Like, I'm gonna be a fashion designer in New York City. It's literally what I have dreamt of, and it was the best feeling in the world. And I listened to Nicki Minaj's I Wish That I Could Have This Moment for Life song over and over and over again. That is exactly how I felt. Was just so accomplished. I had accomplished exactly what I set out to do, and I was so happy. And, you know, it was just something that I'll never forget. I'll put it that way. It was just something I'll never forget. That job ended up being hell, but it was in a good way, because and this is probably not just in fashion, but it is especially in fashion, and but it's probably in most industries, especially in New York, I should say. They really take advantage of you in fashion. If they can get you to work crazy hours, they will get you to work crazy hours. If they can pile more onto your plate, they will pile more onto you. They don't care how stressed you are, how tired you are. They do not care. It was just the hardest I've ever worked, and also a lot of mental manipulation going on. My dad used to tell me I had like battered wife syndrome, because they would just be like, you would never get hired anywhere else. Like, they just don't want you to go anywhere. I remember there was someone that I worked with, that I would like help out, that didn't work directly with me, but she was a senior salesperson, and she would ask me to help out with things when she couldn't get what she really wanted from somebody else. And so I would help her with little projects and stuff that she needed. And she's just, oh my God, Nina, you're so amazing. Thank you. Oh my gosh, your work is so great, blah, 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 blah. And one day my boss had heard her saying that to me, and she told me about this. She said, he came to me, she's like, I just want to let you know, I'm not allowed to compliment you anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, your boss came to me and said, don't compliment her, because if you compliment her, she's going to ask for more money. What? Oh, he used to drive me nuts. I hated him. After I left that company, I started working at a different company, and they moved to the same building that my new job was in. Their whole brand moved to the same building. So I saw that woman, the senior sales, one day in the lobby, and I was like, oh my God, it was a few years after, and I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, this is where the office is now. I was like, oh. And she was like, you know, it's so funny, we were just talking about you the other day. Your old boss was just saying, like, maybe I should reach out to Nina and see if she wants another job. And I was like, no. And she was like, what? I was like, no, tell him no. The answer's no. I would rather work at McDonald's. Like, I would never. Like, the way that this man used to treat me was unlike anything I had ever seen. Like, I've never been treated so poorly. Like, I remember he used to go on all of these international trips, and he would come back with all of these gifts for everyone, and he wouldn't give me one. And I was like the hardest worker. Like, I did everything for him. Like, everything. We had so many things that we were already working on. We had collections that I was designing, and I was in charge of so many things that weren't my job, like that I was in charge of, and just project after project, like just all of this stuff that was like piling on to me, and I didn't have an appropriate team. I think at one point he let me hire one person to be underneath me, and kind of two, but she was like shared. And I was in charge of like 3 different clothing lines. Like, it was insane. It was stupid. And anyway, one time he actually, I'm not even gonna get into it. Long story short is he was offered to potentially have his own show. I think it was someone who just like pitched shows to people, but they wanted to do a reality TV show teaser on him. And he had decided that he wanted it to be kids, like he had 2 kids, a little girl and a little boy, and he wanted it to be with his little girl, and it was going to be all about designing kids, like little girls' dresses, and then also having like themed parties. So he would design the dresses and have the themed parties for these girls. That's what he wanted the concept to be. And so I was having to stay late to help him with this teaser. I was designing the entire collection of girls' dresses, and I had put together all of the parties that they, like the concepts for the parties, all of the mood boards, all of the imagery that he needed for it. I did all of that. And by the way, I was salaried at the time, so I didn't get paid anything extra, and I was working all hours of the night. It was the craziest thing, and I just couldn't say no. Like, I just knew it was going to be torture if I didn't do it. Do you know what I mean? I was just put in this position where, and like, it's not like I wasn't applying for jobs. I was still applying for jobs, but I was still having a hard time getting more interviews for whatever reason. And so I couldn't say no to him, because it was just going to mean more torture when I was at work. Like, he was going to be even worse to me, and I just couldn't stand it. The abuse that I felt from this man, I'll never forget it. It was the worst. It was the worst. I'm happy that I had that job, because honestly, like, I learned so much. Like, every time someone would quit, basically I just had to do their job. So I went from being like, they hired me as an entry-level CAD artist. I went into being the assistant designer. Then the tech team quit, so I became the tech team. I was doing all of the graphics, all of the prints for every single item that we sold, as well as designing the items. And then I was in charge of, like, whenever we would have, you know, the print would come in from the factory, I had to approve it. I had to approve every trim for every single garment. I had to approve samples. I was involved in all of the fittings. I mean, I literally did everything. And then, like I said, the tech team had quit. I had to start doing tech design it took a while before we could get somebody. I actually got a friend of mine hired, and she had never had a fashion job either. We worked together at the restaurant. And I got her hired as a tech designer, and I had to teach her literally everything. Like, I was responsible for training her on basically how to be a tech designer, because she went to school for fashion marketing or merchandising or something, not for tech design. Crazy. Anyway, I learned so much in that position. I was abused in the craziest way, but it also made me learn so much. And so I'm thankful that I had that opportunity, and I was able to pick up as much knowledge as I did during that job. But one of the secondary, like, the day I got that job was one of the happiest days of my life, and then the next happiest day was the day that I left that job. So anyway, that was an even longer life in New York City, I could continue this series, but we'll see, I guess, if you guys are interested to know more of what happened after that, because I've only really gotten you to like 2014 tops, I think. So 2013 maybe. Anyway, so let me know if you're interested in knowing more about basically my career in fashion, up to me quitting my career in fashion and starting my own business. So let me know if you're interested.